Hello, my name is Graham Hagerty. I'm coming from the Advanced Media Lab, and we will be going over UV unwrapping in 3ds Max and importing into Unreal Engine. Alrighty, let's get started. We're going to jump into 3ds Max, and today we're going to be going over making a simple dice. This is going to be a great learning process for UV unwrapping and basically transferring a 2D image onto a 3D model. Alrighty. Alright, first things first, we're going to come in here and create a cube. Over in the permanence, we can make it a proportional just by typing in 50 on every side. Alrighty, so now our modeling for the dice is done. Pretty simple and easy. But today, we're going to be diving in. How do we actually make this a texture object? Alright, convert to an editable poly. Alright, first things first, I'm going to go over here and go to the UV unwrap section. I know there's a lot of information on this page, but it's way simpler than you think. Alrighty, so when you open that up, you get a window that looks like this. And this square with the checkered patterns. This is where basically all of your texture information will be on. It could be, it could be 1024, 2048, 4K, any sort of resolution. But this is where all the pixels are going to live for the texturing for our model. And you can see when I click a face, it'll highlight over here. And right now, wherever you see a green line, that means there's a seam, so they're not connecting. So I can basically break these all apart, and you can see which one I click corresponds to this. So this is a mess. I can come over here and click this, and it helps me visualize what I'm seeing. So you can see as I'm moving these around, we see the different seams. And so this is going to create really ugly textures when you have something like this, because you end up with these ugly seams. So how we're going to fix this is, since it's a cube, it's a relatively easy shape. One thing that we can do is you can go to the tools and you can go and pack the UVs. And this will nice and neatly pack the UVs inside of our texture plane here. And then whenever you do this, you make sure to shrink it down by holding Control and Alt, so it proportionally shrinks down a little bit, because we don't want any of our polygons to be leaking outside of this plane, especially with working in real-time engines. Because when we do that, it'll mess up the light mapping and our shadows will be weird and we'll get all sorts of problems. So I always just, a good habit is just shrink it down a little bit once you have it, just so you make sure you're clear. So I have it like this, and it's all nice and packed and it looks good, but we see a bunch of these green lines, so that means there's going to be a bunch of seams, and we want to avoid that and try to hide as many as possible. So I'm going to come over here, and over here we have a couple of different options. Flattening it will pretty much do what we had here, which will just take every polygon face and flatten it. Then I can go over here, and this is the one we're going to use, is the unfold mapping. And this works for more basic shapes like cubes, all that kind of fun stuff. But when we get into more technical models down the line, we will have to go into some more rigorous methods to get clean UVs. Alrighty, so here we have kind of what we were looking for, a nice unfolded cube. I'm sure many of you guys have created cubes like, back in elementary school and all that stuff out of paper. That is pretty much what we are doing. So now we see that there's some white lines in here, and that means that these two planes will be textured continuously, so there won't be a break, and so it'll be a nice smooth seam. And alrighty, so now that we have this unwrapped, let's add the cube texture so you guys can see how it is correlating. Alrighty, so for that, I'm going to save, just to be safe. I'm going to close out of this. And if you guys aren't familiar with the material panel, you can just click M to get it up. So here's the compact material editor, or the slate material editor. I want to go to the compact material editor just so it's nice and simple. I already have a cube texture uploaded onto this. I'll put this in the description below, but we'll make a new one really quick. So I can come over here, and just for this sake, I'm going to use a standard material. Nice and simple. Come down to the maps, then you can click the diffuse map, which is correlating to the texture. And I'm going to look for the bitmap. Alrighty, so now we're going to click the JPEG. We see the image preview right here. I'm going to open it up, and then we're just going to drop it on. If for some reason it's not showing up in older 3ds Max products, sometimes you can toggle these, and you'll see how it's toggling on and off. So sometimes it defaults off, you add the texture, you get this, and you're like, what is happening? So all you have to do is just turn this on, and here we go. So luckily it lined up all nicely, but let's take a look into our UVs. So I'm gonna go over here, open them up, and convert it to an editable poly if you're not seeing the new texture. I'm gonna come back, add a new unwrap modifier onto it. Alrighty. Now this pops up again, and now when I look down, look, I should have the dice JPEG. Alrighty. So this is what we were kind of like looking for. But it's really nice to be able to see, look, we have the 1, the 2, the 3, 4, 5, and so you can easily see how each one of these planes is basically you're taking the 2D texture data and putting it onto the 3D object. So even though this is very rudimental and very simple, this is the basic for all UV unwrapping and texturing in 3D. So we can look around. So let's just go over here, select it all, and move it. So when I move it, you can start to see how it can easily get messed up and you can start getting these weird factors. So for you, if you unwrap it and it's like up here, you just have to drag it down and align it up nicely. And there we go. Alrighty. So now that we have it unwrapped, all this stuff all nice, make sure we have our little gaps over here. Don't want anything to be leaking out because that will be messing up our light maps. I'm going to close that. I'm going to convert this to an editable poly. One more thing that we can kind of go over is if you're getting weird shapes like if you're getting these weird fractals like this, these weird shadowing, it's attempting to apply a smoothing modifier to these hard surface faces. So you can highlight all of them, and then you can go to clear all, and then you're getting these nice crisp edges. Alrighty, last things last is if we want to round the edges a little bit, I can highlight all of these, go over, add a chamfer, zoom in a little, see if I want to add a little. This will just soften up the edges nicely, and if you do this after you do the UVs, usually it can kind of keep a nice line, and so you don't have to redo them because it's going to be a lot easier just to add a quick chamfer after than UV unwrapping, because now we have a lot more polygons to deal with. Alrighty, so now I'm going to do an extra save and export this out and toss it into Unreal Engine. So the first process is I'm going to highlight this, and I'm going to go to File, Export, and then usually export selected. If it's the only thing in the scene, you can do just export, but if you export with all the stuff in the scene, you're going to get everything. So usually I select what I want to export, I put it on 0, 0, and then I export it. Alright, I'm just going to save it out as dice to my tutorial photo folder. Save it like this. Right now we shouldn't have to worry about too much. Over to the more intricate stuff in a later video. Alrighty, now that this is exported out, I have my texture in my folder as well. I'm going to open up Unreal Engine. Just going to come up here and toss in a new folder. Let's just call this dice for now. Open it up. Alrighty. So Unreal, you can go about importing stuff in a couple ways. The first one is the drag and the drop, which is usually the easiest. I just open up my folder over here. I forgot to mention the Unreal Engine likes FBX. I think you can do OBJs and stuff like that, but FBX is my main one that I work with. So I'm just going to highlight both of these, drag them in here, drop. And then here we kind of run through a couple kind of simple options. For now, usually, if we're just importing a simple geometry face, we're not going to do any scaling parameters. Like if I wanted to, translate it up by, let's say, like 0.25, I can easily do that. But our dice will be fine the size it is. So I'm just going to go import all, and then import that asset as well. Alrighty. So sometimes when you bring it in from 3ds Max, if you have the texture already applied, you'll bring it into the engine and it will already have the texture applied to it. So you can look like this. And we have our dice in Unreal Engine ready to go as a fully 3D asset, and we can make it interactable and all of that. So, but just in case you guys didn't come in with a texture and you get this matte texture, all you have to do is right click on this and create a material. It can just be the dice matte material. You open it up and it'll automatically connect your material to the base color. And for what our purpose is today, this is all that we have to do. So it'll look just like this. And then we have it. Make sure we apply it, and we are ready to go. So that is how we can take a basic object, unwrap it, apply a texture, and bring it into Unreal Engine. There is way more advanced things you can do with texturing, and that we'll dive into PBR textures and all that fun stuff. But for this purposes today, this is all we need to know. We're just going to hop back into 3ds Max for a little bit and just do a little more chatting about different things and the reasons why we have to do these UV unwrapping and all that stuff for working in the engine. So there's certain situations where you might have, let's go back to convert to an editable poly, an unwrap modifier, open UV editor. So let's toss our dice texture onto this. So in this circumstance, we are getting really high resolution textures out of these because they're using the full plane, but they're laying on top of each other. And so this can be okay in certain situations, but remember that we don't want to overlap our UVs in this channel because the light map won't know what to do in the engine and you'll create all sorts of errors. So if I want to get as high resolution as I want and I want each one of these sides to be the exact same, I can do this. I can leave it like this. But if doing so, I have to then go over and I have to change my channel to number 2 because the Unreal Engine will read, and I'm going to move it over. The Unreal Engine will read both channels as, or your second channel as the light matte channel. And if you don't have a second UV channel, it will just basically take your UV1 channel. And that's why we don't overlap our UVs. But in this circumstance, I can pack the UVs just like this. So the engine, as you can see, we're still utilizing the full, amount of pixels and all that stuff for the planes over here. But then we packed it in nice and tight over here. So in doing so, this will still work for the light mapping in Unreal Engine, and I can get higher resolution textures, but as you can see here, all the faces will be the same. So depending on your purpose, there'll be lots of different uses for each of those, and depending on what you want in your scene, either one is acceptable, but you just have to make sure you don't overlap your UVs in the first channel so you don't cause problems with the light mapping. Alrighty, the last little thing I'm going to go over is just using as minimal polygons as you can while still making the object look good. And so for this, we'll do a cylinder. First of all, draw out a cylinder real quick. I'm going to toggle, you can toggle the wireframes just by toggling F4. And you look at this, so it's a nice cylinder. I'll convert to an editable poly. Whoop, actually, go back real quick. Alrighty, so we can kind of play with all the different sizes. You can see here. So I'm going to make a really high polygon one, a medium one, and a low one. Just by coming in here, messing them up. Drop this down to super low. And so we'll chat about how from at a distance we can use less polygons and make it seem, just still like a high polygon just by adding a simple smoothing group, which won't be adding any polygons to this. So and convert these to an editable poly. Add a quick modifier on them. Okay. Add a quick modifier on them. And then from here, we can go in here. I'm going to highlight them all. And in this little section right here, it's the polygon smoothing groups. I'm going to clear all of them so we can take a look, toggle these off. Here we can really see each polygon. And so if there weren't smoothing groups, you can see how we would need so many polygons just to make a simple pillar. But because we have this, I can highlight these, I can hit auto smooth, and now it looks like a nice tube. And you're like, okay, sweet. So now I am going to go and do the same thing for the medium resolution one, auto smooth. And look, from a distance, you can't tell the difference between these two, even though you have a fraction of the polygons. And then for the last one, this is the probably lowest polygon. We'll add a quick smoothing group. And as you can see, since it's the lowest amount of polygons, it's a little tougher. So you can kind of find where your happy middle ground is. Let's do this real quick. Alrighty, so here you can see how we have 3 very different polygon levels, but we can still create a nice smooth surface between them. And Unreal Engine will understand and read the smoothing groups that 3ds Max gives your model. So if I'm making a pillar, I don't have to make it a million polygons. I can, cut the polygons down, add a smoothing group, make it all nice. Well, since we're on here, I'll teach you one more UV unwrapping tool just to finish off the day. So let's come over here. Let's drop down Unwrap. Open it up. Alrighty. And then I always turn this on so I can see what's up. So when it's like this, it's actually, it's actually a pretty decent UV. Nothing's looking too distorted. You can see the lines here, right here. And then where these lines are, that they're not welded. So I can just come on over here, hit this, weld it up, and we're ready to go. But look at the tops and the bottoms. These are things you have to look at. So these are really messy. These will cause problems with our light mapping, creating errors and all that stuff. So we'll use one of my favorite tools, which is just basically choose the plane select tool. You select the plane. Then over here, there's these little button right here. And basically it takes whatever data is behind this yellow plane and just flattens it. So I'm going to see the yellow plane's like this, nice and flat on here. Click this and boom, flattened in a nice perfect circle. Then down here, I'm going to do the same thing. Boom. Alrighty. So a quick way to now, because right now we have these sitting off, they're way larger. So our resolution of our cylinder here is going to be way higher here, which is something we definitely don't want. So an easy fix for that is I can highlight both of these, come over here, and I can do a quick relax. This is just going to make sure that basically the quick relax is going to make it so all the textures and stuff like line up so there's no distortion, all that fun stuff. It's one of the most important tools. But then still a little bit bigger than that, so I can go through, come here, click the full select tool. I can, scale down and, pack these little individually. But a quick, easy way is I can go to the tools, I can go pack UVs, okay, and it packs it all nice up for me. Then from here, I'm going to do a slight adjust down just to be safe, and I can, if I don't like the arrangement of this, I can do all sorts of things, but this is a quick, easy way to kind of get a general gist. And so now this cylinder will be ready to export over into Unreal Engine. Alrighty. I think that's going to bring me to the end today. We went over UV unwrapping, simple exporting and importation into Unreal Engine. And I hope you guys learned something from this and have a wonderful day.